Mr. Johnson for his questions.
Thank you. Mr. Gresser, you respond to the insinuation that the Biden administration was in error in supporting a temporary waiver of patent rules based on the fact that the administration was, an incoming administration, confronted with a grave public health emergency that threatened health and safety of people, and it actually was killing people. Can you go into a little more detail on why you think that it was a correct decision to support that temporary waiver of patent rules? And I would like for you to also respond to the question of whether you believe therapeutics and diagnostics should now be subject to a temporary waiver.
With respect to the Biden administration's choices in 2021 and early 2022, we need to dial back the clock a bit. Over the course of 2020, the world fell into a massive health and economic crisis. As we recall, the former administration closed a lot of the U.S. economy, so did many state governments. We went through a period of offering PPP loans on scale of tens of billions of dollars. We did lots of things that we would not do in normal circumstances and would not be appropriate in normal circumstances. In normal circumstances, the TRIPS agreement, as I've mentioned, is serving the U.S. very well, and I believe is serving the world interest in promoting research and innovation. There have been cases over time. Mr. Klein mentioned HIV and AIDS, which was actually quite a similar debate at the WTO 15 or 20 years ago, whose early years I witnessed while I was at the USTR at that time. It raises a question: when you have an extraordinary threat to public health, is it at some times necessary to make exceptions to policies you would ordinarily not make exceptions to? Sometimes it is. In the case of COVID, government in 2020, 21, 22 was operating on not complete information. We don't know how many new strains will evolve, how quickly they will come, how virulent they will be. And I think governments do need to, at some time, take extraordinary measures. The Biden administration viewed that this might be one. In practice, no one has used it, as you say. So it's probably, in retrospect, maybe it wasn't needed, hasn't done any particular harm, we can move on. With respect to therapeutics and diagnostics, this appears to me to be a much wider array of products and technologies than the vaccine waiver, which is specifically for vaccines for the COVID-19 virus. That gives me pause. It also, I think, should be recognized that we are no longer in the emergency situation of 2020 and 2021, so the external circumstances are different. So I'm personally quite skeptical that this is necessary. I am waiting with some interest to see the ITC's report and what they will show, but I think from what I can see right now, the case for a much broader waiver is not at the moment compelling to me.
Thank you. In your testimony, you say that the fact that China has foregone the use of the waiver means that to the extent there's reason for concern about patent rights to COVID vaccines vis-a-vis China, the relevant issue is one of enforcing current legal rules rather than of opening a gap in those rules for China. Can you expand on that point and describe what you mean?
Yes, that's correct. The WTO TRIPS agreement requires all of its members, with some flexibilities for least developed countries, to maintain a basic set of patent rules and patent laws and enforcement. China has these patent laws. China is a spotty enforcer. China is also an aggressive seeker out of proprietary technologies. The COVID vaccine waiver does not change the WTO rules vis-a-vis China because China has foregone it. It is embodied in a WTO document. So it is an obligation of China just as the regular patent laws are. So what our challenge is in dealing with China vis-a-vis patent laws is to find ways to enforce the WTO rules to the extent we can, to have U.S. businesses adopt best practices to defend themselves, to help the U.S. government, have the U.S. government be an advocate and enforcer of these rules.
Thank you. I yield back.
We now go to the only gentleman on the dais who